So I'm curious to know what you thought about the article. Any comments, questions?
Well, I thought that there was an interesting chart on page 2 that sort of went through all the different intervention models, and I thought that it was pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, that chart is very helpful, and as you'll recall, it offers a comparison of all the different models for change, and I'm wondering which ones you found most compelling. Tanya.
Yeah, to be honest, I couldn't really tell the difference between planned capacity development and capacity-centered development.
Yeah, I found that really confusing too. I think I might need an example.
Can anyone suggest an example that would illustrate that?
I know of an organization in my country of origin, Nepal, that would probably be considered to be using that strategy. Sometimes, however, this is very challenging. I've seen many problems with this organization caused by this idea of capacity-centered development.
Yeah, it is a very interesting example, but I think maybe it would be helpful to have a more local example that all of us could understand and maybe more familiar. So I'm thinking about neighborhood groups. Does that help? Any other thoughts? David?
Yes, Prof. I appreciated how the author stressed the merit in both the top-down approach in planning of formal organization and the more participatory forms of grassroots problem solving.
Yes, correct. But the author also talks about the challenges involved in merging models.
Yes, certainly so. He says the challenge for social development can be mixing features of laissez-faire society that emphasize freedom with societies that emphasize system planning.
Does anyone know what that means? Tanya?
Okay.
Well, I think we can compare what the author is saying to the idea of time. So, for example, people from different cultures have different ideas about time. Like Aboriginal people or people from Africa, for them it's not as big of a deal to be late for a meeting, for example. And so I also think that means that they'll have different ideas about community development. So, like in the case, like maybe Rose, could you remind me where you're from?
Nigeria.
She and I probably have different ideas about time and community development. And so I think in essence what the author is wanting to say is that people who come from different paradigms will approach social change work differently.
There's a lot we could talk about in that, but I'm conscious of the time. So maybe, given that lunch is coming up, I'll just say that that was a good discussion. There were some very interesting comments made. And before we go, maybe we could just offer an opportunity for any of the African or Aboriginal students in the class who might want to respond to what Tanya said. Rose, would you like the last word? Okay. Well, then let's call it a day and have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone. David, I wanted to say how impressed I was with the way you engaged with that article. It's a really difficult article, very academic language and pretty inaccessible, and you had a really good grasp of it. So good for you, and keep up the good work.
At the end of the class, I felt strange because judging from our nonverbal cues, I get it that it was not more of a compliment, it was something else. I get it that she was a bit surprised that I was able to answer the question that she posed out to the class.
I think when it comes to race, it's a very touchy thing for people. And a lot of time, even profs don't know how to deal with it because it's very messy. she might not want to say the wrong thing. She might not want to rock the boat. What if she says something and it leads to a big argument or something she's not able to contain in class? So I think she took the safe, like she made a safer decision, right? So she doesn't have to deal with what was going on. But at the same time, I think it's easier for her to just let it pass than to deal with it. So I think she should have done something about it.
So sometimes when Om is talking in class, I mean, I'm sure he has lots of relevant experience from Nepal. I mean, I know he had a really prestigious job there, but sometimes I just get so frustrated because we're in a Canadian classroom and I just want to understand what all the students are saying. I mean, I'm paying for my education and I'd like to get a good one so I can get a job.
I felt marginalized by the professor. It's frustrating to me that my experience doesn't seem to count at all. I worked for over 10 years in communities around the world, but the people don't want to hear it. The message I get is, if it's not Canadian, it's not good enough. Even if what I have to say is relevant and similar, people don't want to give it any importance.
I felt that cutting me off means that what I had to say was of no use. It's of no importance. And so it creates an uneven playing field for me because whenever I put my hand up and I'm cut off, it creates an impact and my learning capacity is being weighed down.
When Tanya said what she said, I was surprised, I was upset, it's a lot of things coming, a lot of emotion at the same time, right? Like, okay, I thought this would be a good space that people would be more knowledgeable about other culture, that a race is a race, a person is a person, right? So, but that big overgeneralization was just, it was out of it. And I was expecting the prof to do something about it.
I know that we're not supposed to talk about, or we're not supposed to generalize people based on where they're from or groups that they belong to, but I mean, sometimes our experiences are similar.
And I think that's why I didn't say anything. I was overwhelmed with emotion at the moment. And then having to speak for everyone, all Africans, felt like, okay, it shouldn't be my place to do that in class.
I'm feeling bothered that from the motion she was making, that is nothing good going to come from me.
Okay, so you've heard the story now about what happened in the class.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling terrible. So I would really appreciate any feedback you've got for me.
Truthfully, I hear microaggressions.
Microaggressions. Okay, say more.
Well, microaggressions are things that members of a dominant group say. They can be things that they do, like at a nonverbal level, but that are kind of targeted at members of the non-dominant group. And they're demeaning, they're insulting, they're wounding.
Okay, as you're talking, I'm remembering a couple of things. One is that they don't need to be intentional. They can be unintentional.
They frequently are committed by really well-intentioned people.
Okay, and the other thing is that sometimes they're actually expressed as compliments,
Yep.
but they're experienced as insults.
Because there's this negative meta message, absolutely.
Oh dear, okay. Then I committed at least one that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
And I was complicit in one or two others that a student did. So I've got some serious repair work to do.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
If there are no more questions, I'm going to give you the last 30 minutes of class to work on your final group presentations.
Sorry, how many students per group?
No more than 4. Okay, so you've all done group work before, and I'm not expecting there to be too many problems, but if you do encounter any difficulties, just give me a shout or send me an email.
So what do you want to focus on? here.
Well, I thought like this part was really nice to focus on as like a main part. Is that okay?
Yeah, that works for me. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, this section back here, I mean, this section seems really interesting.
Yeah, CPT, right?
I think it's.
Hello, Rose.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay.
Are you all alone?
I haven't found a group yet.
Oh, I would have invited you to join our group, but we're already 4.
I think you can ask Professor if we can make a group of 5.
Can we make a group of 5?
Yeah, a group of 5 is okay, right?
Yeah, if she is okay with it.
Yeah, if the prof is okay with it, we can make a group
Okay,
of
I'll
5.
ask the professor. Okay? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, Professor.
Hi, Dev.
Would it be okay to have a group of 5, please?
I would really rather you not do that. There's not really enough work to go around for 5 people. But, I mean, if you want, you can do the work by yourself. I know it would be a little bit more, but it's possible to do.
I find it really hard to understand his accent. You?
Oh, it's really hard.
Yeah. You know, I really want our presentation to be clear and engaging.
So in terms of timing, do you guys want to go before or after?
Hello, Brad.
Oh, hi, Dev.
How are you?
Oh, we're good, thanks.
You are going to be a group, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah.
So, do you know what topics you are going to be doing?
We were thinking about doing our presentation on arts-based methods. Yeah.
That sounds very interesting.
Yeah, we're really excited about it. What are you thinking of doing yours on?
I'm not really sure yet.
Oh, I'm sure you'll figure it out.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so how about we focus on the different practices afterwards?
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah?
Yeah, let's do that.
Unfortunately, I don't think that what happened in class today was out of the ordinary at all. I see this happening a lot. And what was happening was that the white students were all partnering with other white students, and that the non-mainstream students or the international students were being excluded. And this happens a lot. I'm really, really conflicted about what my responsibility is in the class and what I should do to go about forming groups. I've tried counting students off. I've tried getting students to self-select, assigning topics, and I just wind up getting similar responses from the students at different times. So I'm very conflicted about what my role is in the classroom.
I was, excluded from the group. And it was, I couldn't feel, sense of belongingness in the classroom. Yeah, it was really, disappointing.
They knew he was just by himself. He couldn't, or he shouldn't have been left to do all the work by himself. But I don't know if they notice it or it's too much of an inconvenience for them to have him in their group. They might be looking at the accent. They might be thinking, oh, because he's international student, he doesn't know a lot, or he's not smart enough. All those things come out, in group work. So I felt that was wrong. They should have given him a chance to at least prove himself.
I think it happens because students are comfortable working with people who they assume are similar to them, and they're not willing to explore different possibilities because they're under constraints due to the fact that they have to do assignments. But this is a reality that they're going to be facing in their professional lives, and they need to be prepared for the workforce where they will be encountering these situations and where they need not to be excluding people who are not like them.
When we were choosing groups in class today, it felt, at first it just felt, kind of natural. I mean, I just leaned over, and I just felt a good connection with Sam and Tanya. We'd worked together before, and so our group kind of just fell together, and it just felt fairly natural. At least at first it did. Then as the class kind of went on, like it just started to feel like, oh, we really are kind of cutting Dev out, and that started to feel really uncomfortable.
For me, grades are really important. As an international student, you can already apply for less scholarships, and you really need an A+ grade in every single class to be able to apply to grad school and to get sufficient funding. And so for me, going forward into my PhD program, I can't afford to get anything less than an A+. And while I feel like we really should have included Dave, I don't think it's fair for us to get a worth grade just because of his proficiency in English. I feel like I've worked so hard on my own pronunciation and on my own English that I think it's only fair that I get the chance to get a good grade in class.
When Sam said you will figure it out, I felt I was completely excluded, and I had to do this group work alone, which is a lot of work and efforts and time.
These students study about diversity. They study about marginalization. I don't understand why they are marginalizing other students in their practice as classmates.
Sangela it's kind of like Angela, but much prettier. It's a beautiful name.
So I think maybe we better get to work. I guess as a white male of the group, I'll get us started off by taking charge, eh? Tanya, would you mind taking notes?
Sure, yeah.
So, what exactly are we doing? We have to do a presentation using one of these models, right?
Right, yeah. So basically we just have to pick a theory from this list that works really well with this case study,
Okay.
and then we just present them together in class.
So I love the idea of this assignment because this is basically the same thing I did every year in my undergrad.
Maybe we should all just say which of these models that we like and why, and then we can vote on it, and then we can split up the writing, and we could even have a rough draft up by next week.
Whoa, next week. I've barely even had time to think about it. Do you know what you want to do yet?
Yeah, well, I was thinking CBT would be a good fit with this model. I could see it working well with this case study.
Yeah, CBT will be good. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I've also analyzed a case before using CBT, so it would be a smooth transition for me with that. But I'm just wondering what you think about it, Sangela.
I'm thinking that there are other great models in the list.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of great ones, but I think at this point we just need to pick one and move forward.
Okay, if everyone wants to do CBT, I'm okay with that.
Okay, great. Let's keep moving. I've been part of a lot of groups before where it feels like we just waste so much time, and this semester is just so busy. It drives me crazy when a group just drags on and we just feels like we're not moving forward. So I feel pretty good about where we're at.
I'm not sure how Sangela felt about the group. Well, first of all, I was really feeling quite bad that I didn't hear her name correctly in the first place, and then I needed to spell it out, and I'm still not even sure if I got her name right. And so maybe I was overcompensating by comparing it to a name I know, and then by telling her it was so pretty, I felt maybe like I was being condescending. And then also, Sangela is so quiet in our group, and so sometimes I wonder what she's thinking.
This is first time studying in Canadian University, and group work was not a common part of educational system where I came from. So usually in group work, I feel nervous.
Yeah, I think what I would have loved to see is that we all talk about what's important to us, that we get to know each other, right? And 'cause when we do that, we'll be a stronger group.
So this program has a lot of group work, huh?
Yeah, no kidding.
So much.
Well, we should probably decide what we're going to do for our project.
Yeah.
The syllabus says that we have to pick a marginalized population and see what the literature says about their experience with counseling.
Okay, which marginalized population do you guys want to focus on?
What's about indigenous people? I want to learn more in that topic.
Too bad, we don't have any indigenous students in our class to interview.
We do, actually.
No, we don't.
And I said we do.
What?
I'm indigenous.
What? Are you serious?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, but you don't look indigenous.
It's fine.
Maybe we could interview you. You could share your story in the presentation. That could be really good. Or first-hand narrative account.
I don't know. I mean, you have so light skin to be considered as indigenous person.
So?
So probably you don't experience racism and discrimination as Much?
But I am indigenous. Just because I'm not dark like the Indians that you see in the movies doesn't mean that I don't experience racism.
Maybe occasionally, but not in the same way.
Definitely not in the same way.
I'm also a woman. I know what it's like to be marginalized. Anyway, I have to go. Can we just email about this project?
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I'm feeling a kind of tense thinking about the conversation with Kelsey.
Why are you feeling tense?
I told her that she may not experience discrimination as much as other people they do.
Sorry if I seemed a bit grouchy today. I guess I've just been feeling pretty frustrated about patriarchy lately. How does this sound as an apology?
Sounds good.
Now I think that at that point I didn't see from her perspective. I just thought from my experience. So now I feel that I have to let her know that I'm in her side. I'm frustrated with her. I'm frustrated too.
That sounds good. What do you want to do about it?
I think I have to send her a message.
Sounds good.
She just replied and she said she's frustrated with me.
What?
I don't know, I don't understand. I mean, if anything, I should be frustrated with them. They're the ones who said that I don't look indigenous and that I don't experience oppression.
I'm sorry, that's weird. That's not like Sanjila.
I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Sorry.
It was so confusing when Sanji told me that she was frustrated with me. I mean, I didn't understand it and I didn't know how to reply, basically.
Actually, I was trying to be compassionate with her, saying that I'm also frustrated like her. I'm with her. I'm trying to be sympathetic, and I'm trying to say that I feel bad about what just happened.
It was really uncomfortable. I mean, I was put on the spot, and he just assumed that that's something that I would want to do. And, you know, he goes from not even believing that I'm indigenous to all of a sudden wanting to interview me because he could benefit from it in some way.
It really bothers me when people make assumptions because of what I look like. I wonder if I did that with Kelsey, because she doesn't look indigenous to me.
I don't think we should ever compete for oppression. I mean, it's not something, nobody wants to be oppressed, right? And everyone's experiences of oppression are different, and there's no measurement of it. People can be oppressed in multiple different ways and in different contexts. So everyone's experience is going to be different, and we just need to respect where we all come from.
Oh, great. Lena just sent me her section for our paper. I'm not even like halfway done editing mine.
Yeah, me neither.
I was afraid this might happen.
What happened?
Well, take a look. So, you know, her ideas, they're really great when we meet in person, but if you see them on paper, they just, like, they don't connect. It's really confusing.
Yeah, this is definitely all over the place. Half the words don't really fit.
And I feel like, you know, she uses a lot of fancy words, but they're not the way that we would use them.
Yeah, she has a huge vocabulary. You got to give her that. But I don't know, if it doesn't make sense to us like this, we definitely have to fix it. So maybe we should talk to her about it, or?
I don't know. I really don't want to hurt her feelings, and if we asked her to rewrite it, we just have the same problem again. You know, she won't be able to write differently overnight.
No, that's definitely true, and like all these sections are going to have to be fixed. So do you have the time to rewrite it, or?
No, not really, but I think we'll have to make the time.
So, like, she does have good ideas. You got to give her that too, right? But I don't know. Maybe we can rewrite this together, and it'll be an easier process that way, right? She won't mind.
Can I just say, I really appreciate how good your English is.
What do you mean?
Well, you're such a good writer, and you don't even have an accent when you speak. Like,
Well,
where are you from?
I'm from Toronto.
What's the matter? Didn't you get a good marks in your paper?
The marking is fine. The problem is I'm not the one who got it.
What? What do you mean?
My group members changed my whole contribution to the paper. What I said isn't even there. They took it out as something else and didn't even tell me.
Oh my god, but you said that you spent a lot of time doing this and they also liked your idea when you discussed with them?
I thought they did, but I guess they didn't like my idea enough to have it in the paper.
That is so rude. They should have at least talked with you before they submit the paper. Are you going to talk about this with the professor?
No, I don't want to cause any more conflict.
They are coming this way. Do you want to tell them that you are upset with this?
No, I don't want to talk to them. Let's go.
Okay.
I felt really conflicted. I felt terrible having to change up her writing and obviously hurt her feelings.
It was such a tough decision to decide what we did with Lena's writing. I guess it all came down to the fact that it was a time crunch. I didn't want to do it. That was not kind of my first alternative for what we did, but in the end it worked out. I don't know if she found out about it. I don't know if she went back and read through the paper. She never said anything. But all I know is we wouldn't have done that if we had more time.
When I got paper back, I just felt frustrated because I didn't find anything what I wrote in the paper.
Now, after the fact, I understand that it probably would have been better to hurt her feelings and be honest and direct rather than, try to just rewrite it without her knowing it.
What was that about when Sam told me my English was good? She definitely wouldn't have said that to me if I was white. I wanted to say something, but there's already so much drama that's happening in our group. I just let it go. But it's something that really did bother me at the time.
So, Brad, do you think we should do a PowerPoint?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking that would be easier just because of the whole Google Doc, because we can all access that.
But what about a Prezi?
I could see that the two students from abroad were very quiet, got very little opportunity to offer input, and it was hard for me to tell whether they were holding back for reasons of their own or whether they were looking for opportunities, but everyone else was just so busy talking and making decisions that there was no room for them.
Sometimes I think I had good ideas, but they didn't ask, and I don't know. I don't want to interrupt them, and I didn't find chance to contribute it.
Okay, so what about the first body paragraph? Does anyone care about that?
I'd like to take that one. Okay.
Yeah, when they were talking about Prezi and PowerPoint, I want to say something, but at the time when I was thinking to say something, there was another person jumping in and saying something, so I just didn't say anything.
Got me thinking, did you all read this article? Because there was a pretty good graphic on this
I
page that I think might work out well.
I think that would go really well. Yeah.
I think it stood out to me. I found myself wondering what Sanjila and Lena, were thinking about, what they might be able to contribute to the project. I mean, I was feeling like their voices were absent, but I didn't really know how to fold them into the conversation.
Sometimes I feel like Sanjala's really quiet, and I feel bad about it. Because sometimes I'm wondering what she's thinking. I notice that people in the class don't really respond to her when she says things, and I think a lot of the time it's because it's just hard to understand what she's saying.
There are a few reasons, like I don't want to appear as become too critical, so I usually don't speak up when I disagree, and I also don't want to see as become more different.
I think some students do step back at some point and decide nobody's really listening or nobody really cares.
In social work, we talk a lot about how to listen to people, and we learn those skills, but we're not really listening to what she has to say.
Or nobody knows how to engage with the material they bring, so they just stop. They quiet themselves, they silence themselves, and I think that's a terrible thing to happen to them, and I feel bad that I might have some part in that happening.
sometimes it's because of language, and they are talking in the mother language, and they speak fast, and I want to contribute, but it's hard to find chance.
It could be because sometimes what she's saying is confusing. Sometimes her examples are hard to relate to as well. I think I might just be overthinking things. I don't really know, but I've thought about asking her about it if she feels excluded, but I don't want to offend her.
Maybe it's a cultural thing for them where they're just not used to jumping in or going first, and after that it's too late. Some people say that there's some passivity involved for women from certain cultures. I don't like to think that, but maybe it's a factor. I honestly don't know. What's worse is that I don't know what my responsibility is as a teacher when that happens.
At the time when I realize I have to say something, there is someone speaking already, so I don't get the space when I want to speak up.
Before we get on with today's agenda, there's a couple of things from last week that I would like to follow up on. I did a couple of things at the end of the class, towards the end, that I've been thinking about a lot and that I feel pretty uncomfortable about. Maybe some of you do as well. And so I've consulted with a colleague who gave me some useful feedback, and I think what I'd like to do is process what happened with all of you, and it might not be an easy conversation, but I think it's one that is important to have. Primarily, I want to take responsibility for a couple of things that I did, and the first one was when gave his example of the community development in Nepal, and not only did I not engage with his analysis, which was actually quite astute, I dismissed it altogether and moved on to a local example. And I think that when I did that, I not only shortchanged him, but I shortchanged you folks as well, as if you weren't capable of relating to a global example. And I think that it was my job not to give you an easier, more familiar example, but to help you explore the relevance of that example to you and to your learning. And I think we could have done that and should have done that together. The second thing, and Tanya and I have had a conversation about this, so she knows this is coming. When Tanya talked about people from Africa and Aboriginal people having a different sense of time, I think that it was my responsibility, maybe all of our responsibilities, but certainly mine, and I'm talking about me now, to challenge that and to bring to our attention the danger of generalizing and stereotyping and of behaving as if we know other people enough to speak for them, especially as a group. So not only didn't I have the courage to do that at the time, but I asked Rose to do it, which I feel very unhappy about. And I wish I had done that differently. So what I'd like to do today, if it's all right with you, is give everyone an opportunity to speak who would like to about how they felt at the time and how they feel about it now, and to just talk together about how we handle difference, not just out there, but here, right here in the classroom, not just in theory, but among ourselves. So I'd like to know what you think about that.